can you walk us through what precisely will change on the ground in Gaza and in Israel after Sunday?
Yeah, well, if all goes well, there will be at least a temporary cessation of military activities on all sides in Gaza, which that would be a major development. The Israeli army will redeploy to the outskirts of the Gaza Strip's borders. In most instances, there will be a couple of pockets where they will remain inside Gaza. There will be, I believe, about 33 Israeli hostages released, and that includes both living and deceased, in return for some number of Palestinian prisoners. And I think most importantly for the Palestinians on the ground in Gaza is there's supposed to be a major surge in humanitarian assistance after months of deprivation there. So I think it's quite a lot, and it's quite a tall order, but we'll have to see how it plays out.
Absolutely. Janice, I remember you saying after November of 2023, which was sort of the first ceasefire, that the next one would be the permanent one, that it had to be. Does that view still hold for you? Is that what this is?
I was really optimistic at that point. Adrienne, never imagined that it would be this long. I think there's a constellation of factors now, though, that is going to make it very difficult to resume the fighting. I don't underestimate the challenges here as we move from the first phase to the second, but I'm going to stick to that we will not see any major resumption of fighting.
What makes you say that?
So I think, there's a lot of discussion that this deal was to be had last May, and that is absolutely correct. So what's changed since then? Two big things. One, there has been a strategic rebalancing in the region. Hezbollah has suffered real reverses. Bashar al-Assad is gone in Syria, and for Iran, this is a major defeat. That leaves Hamas in a much more isolated position than it was before. And equally important is the role that President-elect Trump and his people have played. They have left no room for Netanyahu to move and maneuver on this. And I think that was absolutely critical here.
I'm hearing your confidence, but there's also a tenuous nature to your voice. Khaled, I'm wondering what rides on this working, and not just in Gaza and Israel.
There's so much riding on this working, and I wish I were as optimistic as Janice. I think there's so many opportunities for things to go wrong. Any holdup in the implementation of any piece of this could easily snowball and lead to a resumption of fighting, particularly when we consider that Netanyahu is coming to this very, very reluctantly, and with a coalition that is deeply divided. And prominent members of his coalition have said they've torpedoed these efforts in the past, and they will work to torpedo this one. And so, and the fact that Netanyahu doesn't have a victory trophy, Hamas is still intact, and it exists. Of course, it is greatly weakened. Its leadership has been decimated. Its physical capabilities have been decimated, but it is gaining recruits at a faster pace than Israel can kill them, and that is not a success story. So I worry that Netanyahu and company may be looking for any excuse to go back and fight, because that's ultimately what keeps him in power, is prolonging the war.
The responsibility for monitoring this, ensuring that doesn't happen, implementing the deal, sort of will fall under the watch of the Trump administration. Janice, I'm wondering, what are you then going to watch for in terms of how this is handled?
Well, I don't underestimate the challenges as we move ahead. And I'm focused on the bigger strategic picture. One, I think those two extremist parties in the Israeli coalition, their bluff has been called. And I think it was a bluff, the threat to leave the government, and they will not have the capacity of veto that they've had up till now. Secondly, I think the key thing to watch for here is day 16, when those negotiations for the second phase start. Those are much harder than the first phase, and that's going to take tremendous push from the Trump administration on both parties. The kind of leverage they actually exercise this week, they have to be serious. They have to be willing to stay the course. But I think that is the major change. They are single-minded. They do not want this fighting to resume.
And at some point very soon, we will have a conversation about what the future of Gaza looks like. Who's in charge? Who pays the bills? Who polices the streets? This is going to be a huge conversation. But for now, Janice Stein, Khaled Elgindy, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.